A local veteran is back home after an honor flight trip to Washington, D.C., a one-day journey meant to thank those who served. From military time to Mayor of Belpre, William McAfee has quite the story to tell. Our Cassidy Fury is live in the studio to tell us more about how one man's full life led to the flight of a lifetime. Cassidy.
Thank you, Phyllis. 91-year-old William R. McAfee was drafted into the Army from 1957 to 1959. While he remained stateside during the Korean War, he said his time in uniform still shaped who he became, singing bass in Army chapels and even earning second place in military talent competitions. After his discharge, he went back to work, eventually spending more than 2 decades in the restaurant business as the owner of the Crystal Cafe in Parkersburg, and later serving as mayor of Belpre for 8 years. After seeing the memorials in D.C., McAfee said the moment he'll carry with him forever was the emotional homecoming, when thousands of people were there waiting to welcome him home.
This is Home, sponsored by A1 Heating and Cooling and TB Dentistry.
William R. McAfee served in the U.S. Army from 1957 to 1959. He was drafted and said he was grateful for a stateside assignment working in personnel, then as a chaplain's assistant. But at 91 years old, he recently got a chance to see the nation's capital with honor flight number 151 from Columbus to Washington, D.C.
It was raining. That part of it I did not like. After noon, the rain quit. So we saw a lot of the monuments then when it wasn't raining.
McAfee said some memorials stood out more than others, especially the Marine Corps War Memorial and the Korean War Memorial.
The one that I enjoyed the most was the World War II Memorial of Iwo Jima. My second one was Korea. It had people walking toward you, and in the background they had images walking on the wall. So it was very inspiring.
He also credits his guardian, Layla, who helped him every step of the way, including arranging a special presentation. McAfee said he received a Pentagon Medal from a chief of staff, something he believes no one else on the flight received.
She pushed my wheelchair everywhere we went. She was a terrific person. I have a special medal that she gave me, but it was through a person in the Pentagon, and I was the only one who received that medal.
After his service, McAfee returned home and got his job back at DuPont. From there, he said his path took him through several careers, including 23 years in the restaurant business as the owner of Parkersburg's Crystal Cafe, and later public service, elected mayor of Belpre, serving from 2000 to 2008. But even with a lifetime of accomplishments, McAfee said the biggest impact from the honor flight happened when he came home.
There were 2,500 people waiting at the airport and greeted us. We wore our name tags on our chests, and they would say, "Bill, Bill, Bill." And that lasted forever in my mind.
McAfee said if another veteran is thinking about going, he'd tell them to do it. And he hopes the trip never changes. I'm Cassidy Fury with WTAP News, and this is Home.
An incredible homecoming and an incredible life of service. McAfee said he's been married to his wife Carol for 52 years, and even after the Army, he stayed busy serving his community through civic and volunteer work, serving as president of several nonprofits. Honor Flight organizers said these trips are made possible through donations and volunteers, and they're always looking for more support to keep taking veterans to Washington. Thank you, Phyllis. Back to you.
Cassidy Fury reporting live in the studio. Cassidy, thank you.